The gentle clink of my coffee mug against the kitchen counter was the only sound in the house. For once, blessed silence. I savored the moment, knowing it wouldn't last. In this family, peace was as fleeting as my husband's attention span. Mom. Hannah's voice shattered the quiet, urgent and trembling. My 14-year-old daughter burst into the kitchen, her eyes wide with distress. I need to talk to you. It's important. I set down my mug, my chest tightening. What is it, honey? Hannah hesitated, twisting a strand of hair around her finger, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. I saw Dad today. Near school. Okay, I said slowly, not understanding her agitation. Was he picking you up? She shook her head vigorously. No, Mom. He was with someone. A woman. They were. She trailed off, her cheeks flushing. My stomach dropped. They were what, Hannah? Kissing, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't want to tell you, but I couldn't keep it secret. The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the counter, steadying myself. Bryce. My husband of 16 years. The father of my child. A cheater. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to call him and unleash my fury. But Hannah's eyes were locked on me, searching for reassurance. I took a deep breath, pushing down the rage and hurt. It's okay, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile. You did the right thing by telling me. We'll handle this together. Hannah nodded, relief washing over her face. As I hugged her, my mind raced. How long had this been going on? How many times had Bryce lied to my face? I thought back to our early days, when his charm had swept me off my feet. When had it all started to unravel? Was it Marlene's constant interference, her snide comments about my housekeeping, my parenting, my very existence? One thing was certain, everything was about to change. As I held my daughter, I made a silent vow. No more playing the dutiful wife. No more bowing to Marlene's demands. It was time for Erica Bennett to take control of her own story. I stood in the kitchen, hands trembling as I gripped my phone. Bryce would be home any minute, and I was ready for a confrontation. Hannah was safely at her friend's house for a sleepover. It was now or never. The front door opened, and Bryce's footsteps echoed through the house. Erica? I'm home. I took a deep breath. In the kitchen. He sauntered in, loosening his tie. How was your day, honey? The casual tone, the easy smile, it made my blood boil. Interesting, I said, my voice tight. Hannah saw something at school today. Bryce's smile faltered for a split second. Oh? What's that? You, I said flatly. With another woman. Kissing. The color drained from his face, but he recovered quickly. What? That's ridiculous. Hannah must have been mistaken. I clenched my fists. Our daughter isn't blind, Bryce. She knows what she saw. He laughed, but it sounded forced. Come on, Erika. You're being paranoid. I was probably just talking to a colleague. With your tongue down her throat? The words came out sharper than I intended. Bryce's eyes narrowed. You're hysterical. This is exactly why I work late so often, to avoid these ridiculous accusations. I felt like I'd been slapped. How many times had he used that excuse? How many times had I believed him? Don't you dare turn this around on me, I hissed. I want the truth, Bryce. Now. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. The truth is, you're overreacting. Maybe if you focus more on our marriage instead of your little crafting hobby, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The condescension in his voice made me see red. I thought of all the times I'd swallowed my pride, all the times I'd let Marlene's snide comments slide. Not anymore. My little crafting hobby pays the bills, Bryce, I said, my voice steady despite the rage coursing through me. Unlike your overtime with your secretary. His eyes widened, then narrowed dangerously. You don't know what you're talking about. Drop it, Erica. For your own good. The threat hung in the air between us. I thought of Hannah, of the life I wanted for her. I wouldn't let her grow up thinking this was normal. No, I said, surprised by the strength in my voice. I won't drop it. This ends now, Bryce. One way or another. As we stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills, I realized something. This wasn't just about Bryce's infidelity. It was about years of suppressed anger, of dreams deferred, of a life half-lived, and I was done settling. The cafe bustled with the morning rush, but I barely noticed as I poured out my heart to Angela. My best friend listened intently, her brow furrowed with concern. "I can't believe Bryce would do this," she said, shaking her head. "What are you going to do?" "Isait, Sterling Mount led." "I don't know. He's denying everything, making me feel like I'm crazy for even suspecting him." Angela's eyes flashed with anger. "Classic gaslighting. You know what you need. Proof. How am I supposed to get that?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Have you considered hiring a private investigator?" The suggestion hit me like a thunderbolt. It seemed so drastic, yet I never thought I'd be that wife, I murmured. "This isn't about being that wife," Angela insisted. "It's about protecting yourself and Hannah." As I contemplated her words, my mind drifted back to the early days of my marriage. I'd been so young, so eager to please. I remembered the first time Marlene had criticized my cooking, how Bryce had laughed it off instead of defending me. It was the beginning of a pattern I'd ignored for far too long. "You know," I said slowly, "there was a time I would have been too scared to even consider this. But I'm not that person anymore." Angela smiled. "No, you're not. You're Erica Bennett, successful artist and businesswoman. You've come so far from the timid housewife you used to be." Her words sparked a memory. The day I decided to start my handmade jewelry business, despite Bryce's skepticism and Marlene's snide remarks. I'd been terrified, but determined. And now my little hobby was supporting our family. "You're right," I said, straightening my shoulders. "I've faced bigger challenges than this. If Bryce is cheating, I deserve to know the truth." As we left the cafe, my phone buzzed. A text from Bryce: "Mother's coming for dinner. Wear something nice for once." The old Erica would have scrambled to comply, but not anymore. I typed back, "Can't make it. Business meeting." Angela raised an eyebrow as I showed her the exchange. "Good for you," she said. "Now, let's find you a detective." As we walked away, I felt a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. I was stepping into unknown territory, but for the first time in years, I felt truly in control of my life. Whatever happened next, I knew I had the strength to face it head-on. Detective Sawyer's office was cluttered but cozy, much like the man himself. As I sat across from him, my hands trembled slightly. This was it, the moment of truth. "Mrs. Bennett," he began, his voice gentle but firm. "I have the information you requested." I took a deep breath. "Tell me everything." As Detective Sawyer laid out the evidence, my world crumbled. Photos of Bryce with not one, but two different women. Hotel receipts. Text messages. It was worse than I'd imagined. "I'm sorry," Sawyer said, genuine sympathy in his eyes. I nodded numbly, my mind reeling. Suddenly, a memory surfaced. Bryce comforting me after a miscarriage, promising we'd try again when I was ready. How could that man be the same one in these photos? "There's more," Sawyer continued hesitantly. "Your husband, he's been moving money around. Large sums." My head snapped up. "What?" He showed me financial records, pointing out suspicious transactions. "It looks like he's been siphoning money from your joint accounts for months." The betrayal cut deep, but something else snagged at me. "Wait," I said, a horrible realization dawning. "Some of those withdrawals, they're from my business account." Sawyer's expression darkened. "I'm afraid so, Mrs. Bennett." Rage bubbled up inside me, hot and fierce. I thought of all the late nights I'd spent working on my jewelry, all the craft fairs and online marketing. And all along, Bryce had been stealing from me. What are my options? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Sawyer leaned forward. "With this evidence, you have a strong case for divorce. But there's something else to consider. These financial irregularities, they could be grounds for criminal charges." The weight of his words hit me like a ton of bricks. Criminal charges. Divorce. How had my life come to this? As I left Sawyer's office, my phone buzzed. A text from Marlene. "Family dinner tonight. Don't disappoint Bryce again." I stared at the screen, years of resentment and anger boiling over. No more playing the dutiful wife. No more bowing to Marlene's demands. With shaking fingers, I typed a response. "I'll be there. And I'm bringing a surprise." It was time to confront Bryce, to reclaim my life and my dignity. As I drove home, My mind raced with possibilities. One thing was certain. Tonight, everything would change. Marlene's dining room felt suffocating as I sat there, the weight of the evidence in my purse threatening to crush me. Bryce chatted amiably with his mother, while Hannah pushed food around her plate, avoiding eye contact. The tension was palpable. "So, Erica," Marlene's voice cut through my thoughts, "I hope you're not still wasting time on that little jewelry hobby of yours." I saw red. "Actually, Marlene, my hobby is doing quite well. Unlike some people's fidelity." The room fell silent. Bryce's fork clattered against his plate. "Erica, what are you?" I pulled out the folder Detective Sawyer had given me, my hands shaking slightly. "I know everything, Bryce. The affairs, the money you've been stealing from our accounts, from my business." Marlene gasped. "How dare you accuse my son?" "It's all here," I interrupted, spreading photos and financial records across the table. "Two women, Bryce? And embezzlement? I expected better from you." Bryce's face drained of color. "You had me followed? You invaded my privacy? You invaded our marriage." I shot back, years of pent-up anger finally breaking free. "You stole from me, from our daughter's future." Hannah's eyes widened, filling with tears. "Dad, is it true?" Bryce stammered, looking frantically between us. I can explain. It's not what it looks like." Marlene stood up, her face contorted with rage. "This is preposterous. Bryce would never." "Enough." I slammed my hand on the table, silencing them both. "I'm done with the lies, the gaslighting, all of it. Bryce, I want a divorce. And I'm pressing charges for the embezzlement." The room exploded into chaos. Marlene screamed accusations, Bryce pleaded, and Hannah sobbed quietly. But for the first time in years, I felt calm, centered. "Hannah, go pack a bag," I said softly. "We're leaving." As my daughter fled upstairs, Bryce grabbed my arm. "You can't do this. You'll ruin everything." I wrenched free, meeting his gaze steadily. "No, Bryce. You ruined everything. I'm just picking up the pieces." Marlene stepped between us, her voice dripping with venom. "If you walk out that door, you'll regret it. I'll make sure you never see a penny of Bryce's money." I laughed, surprising even myself. "Keep it. I don't want anything from either of you. I have my own money, my own strength. Come on, Hannah. We're going home." As we walked out, leaving Bryce and Marlene sputtering behind us, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, I was excited about the future. It was time to reclaim my life on my own terms. The small apartment felt like a sanctuary as Hannah and I unpacked our meager belongings. It wasn't much, but it was ours, free from Bryce's lies and Marlene's constant criticism. "Mom?" Hannah's voice was hesitant. "Are we going to be okay?" I pulled her into a tight hug. "We're going to be more than okay, sweetheart. We're going to thrive." As days turned into weeks, I threw myself into my jewelry business with renewed vigor. Every piece I created felt like a step towards our independence. Hannah, too, seemed to blossom away from the toxic atmosphere of our old home. But our peace was short-lived. One evening, as I was finishing a custom order, my phone buzzed incessantly. Texts from Bryce, each more desperate than the last. "Erica, please. We need to talk. I'm sorry. I can explain everything. Don't do this to our family." I ignored them all, my hands shaking as I returned to my work. Then came the final message. "I'm outside your apartment." Panic gripped me. How had he found us? I peered through the peephole to see Bryce pacing in the hallway, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. "Mom?" Hannah appeared behind me, her eyes wide with fear. "Is that Dad?" Before I could answer, Bryce's voice boomed through the door. "Erica. Hannah. I know you're in there. Please, just let me explain." I turned to Hannah, my voice low and urgent. "Go to your room and lock the door. Don't come out until I say it's safe." As Hannah retreated, I took a deep breath and opened the door, keeping the chain latched. "What do you want, Bryce?" His bloodshot eyes met mine. "I've lost everything, Erica. My job, my reputation. Marlene's cut me off. You're all I have left." For a moment, I felt a flicker of pity. Then I remembered the photos, the stolen money, Years of gaslighting and emotional abuse. You did this to yourself, I said, my voice steady. We're not your fallback plan. Bryce's face contorted with rage. You can't do this to me. I'll take everything from you. The business, Hannah, you'll have nothing. As he ranted, I saw the truth clearly for the first time. This man had never loved me, never respected me. He only wanted to control me. Goodbye, Bryce, I said, closing the door on his protests. I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding. We weren't safe here anymore. We needed to move, to start over completely. But how? With what money? As panic threatened to overwhelm me, I caught sight of my workbench, glittering with half-finished pieces. My talent, my passion, the very things Bryce and Marlene had tried to diminish for years. In that moment, I made a decision. We wouldn't just survive, we'd flourish. And I knew exactly how to do it. Hannah, I called, my voice stronger than I felt. Pack your bags. We're going on an adventure. The craft fair bustled with energy, my booth a beacon of color amidst the crowd. Hannah helped a customer try on a necklace, her smile genuine for the first time in months. This was our fresh start, our chance at a new life. Then I saw him. Bryce, weaving through the crowd, his eyes locked on our booth. My heart raced as he approached, Marlene in tow. Erica, he said, his voice sickly sweet. We need to talk. I stood my ground. We have nothing to discuss, Bryce. Marlene stepped forward, her face a mask of concern. Erica, dear, this has gone on long enough. It's time to come home. Home. The word felt hollow now. This is our home, I said, gesturing to the booth to Hannah. We're building a life without you. Bryce's facade cracked. You can't do this. I've lost everything because of you. My job, my reputation. You lost those things because of your own actions, I interrupted. His eyes narrowed. I'll take you to court. I'll fight for full custody of Hannah. You'll have nothing left.
Fear gripped me, but I refused to show it. You're welcome to try, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. As they argued, I noticed Hannah shrinking back, her eyes wide with fear. This was exactly what I'd wanted to protect her from. Enough, I said, my voice cutting through their tirade. You need to leave. Now. Bryce lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You ungrateful. Suddenly, Detective Sawyer appeared, gently but firmly removing Bryce's hand. I believe the lady asked you to leave. Bryce paled. Who are you? Someone who has all the evidence of your infidelity and financial fraud, Sawyer replied calmly. I suggest you walk away before things get worse for you. Bryce and Marlene retreated, but not before Marlene hissed. This isn't over, Erica. You'll regret this. As they disappeared into the crowd, I felt my knees buckle. Hannah rushed to my side, her arms wrapping around me. Mom, are you okay? I nodded, fighting back tears. We're okay, sweetheart. We're going to be okay. But as I looked at our booth, at the life we'd built from scratch, I couldn't shake the feeling that Marlene was right. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That night, as Hannah slept, I sat at my workbench, staring at the unfinished pieces before me. Each one represented a step towards our freedom, our future. But was it enough? Could I really protect Hannah from Bryce's threats? My phone buzzed with a text from Angela. How are you holding up? I hesitated, then replied, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Her response was immediate. You can. You're stronger than you know. Remember why you started this journey. As I read her words, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't the meek, submissive wife I'd once been. She was a fighter, a survivor. With renewed determination, I picked up my tools. I had a choice to make. Give in to fear or fight for the life Hannah and I deserved. And I chose to fight. The courtroom felt suffocating as I sat, waiting for the judge's decision. Bryce and Marlene sat across the aisle, their faces a mix of anger and desperation. Hannah squeezed my hand, her presence a constant reminder of why I was fighting so hard. As the judge began to speak, time seemed to slow down. In the matter of Bennett versus Bennett, I've reached a decision. I held my breath, years of struggle flashing before my eyes. The The early days of marriage full of hope. The gradual erosion of my self-esteem under Bryce and Marlene's constant criticism. The moment I decided to start my jewelry business, despite their mockery. And finally, the day I found the strength to leave. Given the evidence presented, including Mr. Bennett's infidelity and financial misconduct, I'm granting Ms. Bennett full custody of their daughter, Hannah. Mr. Bennett will have supervised visitation rights. A collective gasp filled the room. I felt tears of relief streaming down my face as Hannah hugged me tightly. The judge continued, "Furthermore, Ms. Bennett will retain full ownership of her business, and Mr. Bennett is ordered to repay the funds he embezzled with interest." Bryce jumped to his feet, face red with rage. "This is outrageous. You can't." "Sit down, Mr. Bennett," the judge warned sternly, "unless you want to be held in contempt." As we left the courtroom, Marlene approached us, her eyes cold. "You've destroyed this family, Erica. I hope you're happy." For a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. Then I looked at Hannah, standing tall beside me, and found my voice. "No, Marlene. You and Bryce destroyed this family long ago. Hannah and I are building a new one. Stronger, healthier, and full of love." Marlene's face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw the lonely, bitter woman behind the controlling facade. Without another word, she turned and walked away. That evening, as Hannah and I sat in our cozy apartment, surrounded by my jewelry creations, I felt a profound sense of peace. "Mom," Hannah said softly, "are you okay?" I smiled, realizing I truly was. "I'm more than okay, sweetheart. For the first time in years, I feel free." As we cuddled on the couch, planning our future, I reflected on my journey. From a timid housewife to a successful businesswoman and single mother, I had transformed in ways I never thought possible. My phone buzzed with a message from Angela. "You did it, girl. So proud of you." I typed back, "We did it. Couldn't have made it without you." Looking around at the life we'd built, I felt a surge of pride and hope. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready for whatever challenges came our way. Because now I knew the truth. My worth wasn't defined by Bryce, Marlene, or anyone else. It came from within, forged through adversity and shining brighter than any jewelry I could create. Hannah and I were finally free to write our own story, and it was going to be beautiful.